Good morning, dear friends. Welcome back to Akshadari. I'm Devraj. So today is 26th June 2023. So let's start the newspaper reading. So before going to start the newspaper reading, so I would request you guys to please subscribe the channel, like and comment. If you like the video, please share the video and give the comment. So if you have any doubts or queries, so that I can bring very informative videos in the upcoming days. So I hope you guys are doing great and are learning great. So let's start today's newspaper reading. Yes, let's start the newspaper reading and let's see what's in the front page of the Hindu newspaper. Yes, this is the front page. Rebellion was not against a Russian state. 149 pilgrims have died in 65 days this year. Crackdown in devices to control emissions. The main chapter of how it sees the first concept of nationalism rooted in culture. India meets Kuwait to decide group topper. Center will ensure execution of act with cookies. Bahrain. Cookie insurgent groups violated ground rules of SOO agreement. Alleges Manipur CM officials say withdrawal of AFSPA hindering operations. Though Home Minister said the center will provide maximum support to implement ground rules applicable to SOO groups. Higher pension July 11 is new deadline. NMC withdraws latest MBBS admission rules. A technical committee to study expressway problems. Annual plan is the plan in the offing to reduce pedestrian deaths. BJP suffered owing to entry of Congress leaders. Annual plan in the offing to reduce number of pedestrian deaths in city. According to the Additional Director General of Police, Traffic and Road Safety, 33% of the total number of fatal accidents involve pedestrians. As asked the police commissioner a question this Friday. Pedestrian knocked down. FIR registered against school for operating without note. App launched. Technical committee to be set up to study expressway. Decision taken at a meeting of highway officials and electoral representatives from India. State government proposes tunnel. Man stabbed. The Adgodi police are on the lookout for a rowdy shooter who allegedly assaulted his wife with a knife, suspecting his her fidelity in the Bajaj Street area here on Sunday. The accused Dayananda alias Nandu came home drunk and had an argument with his wife, accusing her of having an affair with her colleague. Heated arguments ensued, following which Dayananda stabbed his wife multiple times before their minor children, said the police. MSME entrepreneurs for your contribution to the nation. BJP shepherd owing to entry of Congress leaders Ishwarappa. The former Deputy Chief Minister terms Operation Lotus as the cause of defeat for BJP. Anabhagyal keeps food from depending on others for rice. Find positive ways to discipline students and save young lives. It tells educational institutions. CM urges first-time legislators to study basic tenets of Constitution. Kempegowda International Award announced. CM insert budget size. Logo of Forest Department unveiled. Federations flee to government to set up Mahatma Gandhi Vastrodhyama. 35 BRS leaders meet Karge. Rahul express willingness to join Congress. Suspended BRS leader Ponguleti Srinivas ready to officially join Congress in Khammam on July 2nd. July's leaders formally welcomed to join 40 at a meeting in New Delhi. AICC releases a list of 35 leaders who will be switching their loyalties. Rahul backs KPCC chief, says Congress will not bow to intimidation. LDF UDF impeded Kerala's progress. Police arrest 6 persons in YSRCP leaders' murder case. Lulu Group commits to invest over 3,500 crore in Telangana. Students in Kerala to be trained in a drive against drug case. YSR law Nestum. Jagan releases 6 crore. Tiger ventures into residential area in AP district. Kills a cow. The main chapter of how Hindutva sees the fast. Let's read this editorial page written by Shashi Tharoor. The 5th, 6th at Ham MP of Congress. The revived contestations over history from the Ganwapi Mosque case to the renewed demonetization of Aurangzeb confirm that Hindutva conflates its ideas of religion and culture with those of nation and state. Nationalism and statehood are by definition indivisible, whereas religion and culture take on multiple manifestations. Culture, of course, contributes to national identity, yet culture alone cannot mold the nationalism of a country, leave alone that of a plural land such as Indeed, India, confident in its own diversity, could celebrate multiple expressions of its culture. A ground zero, Hindutva sees culture differently as the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangha's longest serving chief M.S. Golwalkar wrote, culture is but a product of overall comprehensive religion, a part of its body and not distinguishable from it. For the Hindutva India's national culture is Hindu religious culture, and cultural nationalism cloaks plural India in a mantle of Hindu identity. Since Hindutva conception of nationalism is rooted in the primacy of culture over politics, the Hindutva effort is to create an idea of the Indian nation in which the Hindu religious identity coincides with the cultural. In this process, Indian history, following the Muslim conquest of North India, has become ground zero in the battle of narratives between the Hindutva and the pluralists. When, with the publication of my book, An Era of Darkness, the British Empire in India, I spoke critically of 200 years of foreign rule. The voices of Hindutva, led by Prime Minister Narendra Modi himself, condemned 200 years of foreign rule. To them, the Muslim lead rulers of India, whether the Delhi Sultans, the Deccan Sultans, or the Mughals, are the hundreds of other Muslims who occupied thrones of greater or lesser importance for several hundred years across the country, were all foreigners. I responded that while the founder of a Muslim dynasty may well have come to India from abroad, he and his descendants stayed and assimilated on this country. Mad Hindu women had immersed themselves in the fortunes of this land. Each Mughal emperor after Babur had less and less connection of blood or allegiance to a foreign country. If they looted or exploited India and Indians, they spent the proceeds of their loot in India and did not send it off to enrich a foreign land as the British did. The Mughals received travelers from the Pargana Valley politely, inquired about the well-being of the people there, and perhaps even gave some money for the upkeep of the graves of their Chingijid ancestors. But they stopped seeing their original homeland as home. By the third generation, let alone the fifth or sixth, they were as Indian as any Hindu. The intellectual terrain. This challenge of authenticity, however, cuts across a wide intellectual terrain. It emerges from those Hindus who share various Naipul's weave up theirs as a wounded civilization, a pristine Hindu land that was subjected to repeated defeats and conquests over the centuries as the hands of rapacious Muslim invaders and was enfeebled and subjugated in the process. To them, independence is not merely freedom from British rule but an opportunity to restore the glory of Hindu culture and religion, wounded by Muslim conquerors. Historians such as Audrey Truskey, author of a sympathetic biography of Aurangzeb, have argued that this account of Muslims despoiling the Hindu homeland is neither a continuous historical memory nor based on accurate records of the past. But one cannot underestimate the emotional content of the Hindutva weave. It is for them a matter of faith that India is a Hindu nation, which Muslim rulers attacked, looted, and sought to destroy, and documented historical facts that repute this weave are at best an inconvenience, at worst an irrelevance. Indeed, Professor Truskey has remarked on the widespread belief in India that Aurangzeb was a Muslim fanatic who destroyed thousands of Hindu temples, forced millions of Indians to convert to Muslim Islam, and enacted a genocide of Hindus. None of these first propositions, as she demonstrates in her work, now true one was true. Least of all the claim made by many of those who fought successfully to remove his name from a prominent road in Delhi, that his ultimate aim was to eradicate Hindus and Hinduism. Historical evidence suggests that Aurangzeb did not destroy thousands of Hindu temples as she is claimed, and that the ones he did destroy were largely for political reasons. That he did lately to promote conversions, as evidenced by the relatively modest number of Hindus who adopted Islam during Aurangzeb's rule, that he gave patronage to Hindu and Jain temples and liberally donated land to Brahmins, and that millions of Hindus thrived unmolested in his empire. Like many rulers of his time, whether Muslim or Hindu, Aurangzeb attacked Hindus and Muslims alike. But such nonsense accounts of Aurangzeb enjoy little traction amongst those who prepare their history in unambiguous shades of black and white. Aurangzeb is controversial not because of what he did in the historical past, but rather because he serves a useful purpose in the present as an emblem of Muslim oppression. In the Hindutva centered view, history is made of religion based binaries, in which all Muslim rulers are evil and all Hindus are valiant resistors. Embodiments of a incipient Hindu nationalism, the Hindutvawadis seem unaware of the Muslim generals who fought on the side of Hindu Rajas and vice versa. And if you extol Maharana Pratap as the victor in the Battle of Haldigati against Akbar's Mughal army, realized that Akbar's forces were in fact commanded by a Hindu Raja Man Singh of Amber, and that Raja Pratap's assistance was led principally by a Muslim Hakim Khan Sur. Similarly, liberal and tolerant rulers such as Azoka, Akbar, Jai Singh, and Wajid Ali Shah do not figure in Hindutva's list of nationalism heroes. Indeed, where many nationalist historians extolled Akbar as the liberal, tolerant counterpart to the Islamist Aurangzeb, Hindutvawadis have begun to attack him too, principally because he was Muslim and, like most medieval monarchs, killed princes who stood in his way, many of whom happened to be Hindu. The recent past is not spared to communal history colors even the most recent past. Among those Indians who revolted against the British, Bahadur Shah, Jeenat Mahal, Maulabi Hamdullah, and General Bakht Khan, all Muslims are conspicuous by their absence from Hindutva studies and syncretic traditions such as the Bhakti movement and universalist religious reformers such as Ram Mohan Roy and Keshub Chandra Sen do not receive much attention from the Hindutva orthodoxy. What does is the uncritical veneration of Hindu heroes such as Maharana Pratap and of course Chhatrapati Shivaji and the intrepid Maratha warrior whose battles against the Mughals have now replaced accounts of Mughal kings in Maharashtra's textbooks. As the recent National Council of Educational Research and Training controversy has again reminded us, the education system is the chosen battlefield for the Hindutva warriors, and the curriculum revision their prepared weapon. History has often been contested terrain in India, but its revival in the context of 21st century politics is a sobering sign that the past continues to have a hold over the Hindutva movement in the present, while the Mughals will be demonized as a way of delegitimizing Indian Muslims who are stigmatized as Aurangzeb ke Aulad, the sons of Aurangzeb. The appropriation of Sardar Patel, Madan Mohan Malaviya, and other nationalists by Hindutva confirm that the heroes of the freedom struggle will be hijacked to the ruling party's attempts to appropriate a halo of nationalism that none of its forebears has done anything to earn. This is about the past. A grand revival. India and Egypt have re established close ties in recent years, laying the foundation for a future ready digital India. Rebel in Russia, Vladimir Putin should bring the war to an end for stability at home. Let's read this, laying the foundation for a future ready digital India. Laying the foundation for a future ready digital India, the Ministry of Electronics and IT has been actively organizing consultations on the proposed Digital India Bill to build conceptual alignment on a new law that will replace India's 23-year-old Information Technology Act. The goal is to upgrade the current legal regime to tackle emerging challenges such as user harm, competition, and misinformation in the digital space. The Union Minister of State for Electronics and Technology, Rajiv Chandrasekhar, said that the first draft of the bill should be out by the end of June. This is a much anticipated piece of legislation that is likely to redefine the contours of how technology is regulated. not just in India but also globally. Changes being proposed include a categorization of digital intermediaries into distinct classes such as e commerce players, social media companies, and search engines to place different responsibilities and liabilities on each kind. Why present regime is untenable. The current IT Act defines an intermediary to include any entity between a user and the internet. And the IT rules subclassify intermediaries into three main categories: social media intermediaries, significant social media intermediaries, and the recently notified online gaming intermediaries. MSMIS are platforms that facilitate communication and sharing of information between users, and SMIs that have a very large user base above a specified threshold are designated as SSMIs. However, the definition of SMIs is so broad that it can encompass a variety of services such as video communications, matrimonial websites, email, and even online comment sections on websites. The rules also lay down stringent obligations for most intermediaries, such as a 72-hour timeline for responding to law enforcement tasks and resolving content takedown requests. Unfortunately, ISPs, websites, e-commerce platforms, and cloud services are all treated similarly. Consider platforms such as Microsoft Teams or customer management solutions such as Zoho. By virtue of being licensed, these intermediaries have a closer user base and present a lower risk of harm from information going viral. Treating these intermediaries like unconventional social media platforms not only adds to their cost of doing business but also exposes them to greater liability without meaningfully reducing risks presented by the internet. So far, only a handful of countries have taken a clear position on the issue of proportionate regulation of intermediaries, so there is not too much to lean on. The European Union's Digital Services Act is probably one of the most developed frameworks for us to consider. It introduces some exemptions and creates three tiers of intermediaries: hosting services, online platforms, and very large online platforms. With increasing legal obligations, Australia has created an eightfold classification system with separate industry drafted codes governing categories such as social media platforms and search engines. Intermediaries are required to conduct risk assessments based on the potential for exposure to harmful content such as child sexual abuse, marital material, or terrorism. Focus areas for India. While a granular product specific classification could improve accountability and safety online, such an approach may not be future proof. As technology evolves, the specific categories we define today may not work in the future. What we need, therefore, is a classification framework that creates only few defined categories, requires intermediaries to undertake a risk assessments, and uses that information to bucket them into relevant categories. As far as possible, the goal should also be to minimize obligations on intermediaries and ensure that regulatory asks are proportionate to ability and size. One way to do this would be to exempt micro and small enterprises and catching and conduit services, the pipes of the internet, from any major obligations, and clearly distinguish communication services where end users interact with each other from other forms of intermediaries such as search engines and online marketplaces. Given the lower risks, the obligations placed on intermediaries that are not communication services should be lesser, but they could still be required to appoint a grievance officer, cooperate with law enforcement, identity advertising, and take down problematic content within a reasonable timelines. Intermediaries that offer communication services could be asked to undertake risk assessments based on the number of their active users, risk of harm, and potential for virality of harmful content. The largest communication services platforms such as Twitter could then be required to adhere to special obligations such as appointing India-based officers and setting up in-house grievance appellate mechanisms with independent external stakeholders to increase confidence in the grievance process. Alternative approaches to curbing virality, such as circuit breakers to slow down content, could also be considered. For the proposed approach to be effective, metrics for risk assessment and appropriate thresholds would have to be defined and reviewed on a periodic basis in consultation with industry. Overall, such as framework could help establish accountability and online safety while reducing legal obligations for a large number of intermediaries. In doing so, it could help create a regulatory environment that helps achieve the government's policy goal of creating a safer internet ecosystem while also allowing businesses to thrive. This is about the Digital India and Information Act. Let's go to the next page. A man of the times and ahead of it. Reduced ceiling, increased hangers, a reduced limit on open market borrowing has caused a political coup. A June with extremes in temperature. The maximum temperature hit the lowest mark in Chennai and the highest in Thiruvananthapuram. Talks with the fog Delhi caution. Let's see what is the temperature in Karnataka. Assam will have fewer Muslim majority constituencies, say opposition leaders. The Election Commission in its draft proposal has effectively limited the number of Muslim majority assembly constituencies to 22 from 29, say the AIUDF and Congress. Chief Minister says that the draft delimitation proposals would do what the Assam Accord of 1985 and the NRC could not. Center will ensure execution of SO fact. Modi holds meeting to review Manipur situation. Dismiss Biren Singh first. Congress chief urges Prime Minister. IRPF pension deadline now July 11. Tribal Union is not an aggrieved party, says Manipur government. Man lynched by group of cow vigilants, 11 arrested. This is the second incident of cow vigilants killing people in Nasik in nearly 2 weeks. Say bad. New constitution bans to UFO cases. Women activists aiding rioters are blocking routes in Manipur. Rajnath Singh criticizes Obama's remarks on minority rights in India. Defense Minister speaks out against former US President's statement, reminding him of the many Muslim countries he has attacked, referring to the war on terror during the Democrat leader's tenure at the White House. Obama ji should not forget that India is the only country which considers all the people living in the world as family members. Restless move quote for a copy of charge sheet. Respect norms, sentiments while offering Eid sacrifice. India summons Pak diplomat over attacks against Sikhs. Mamata government complicit in Bengal violence, alleges Yechuri. Mamata government complicit in Bengal violence, alleges Yechuri. Opposition plans seat sharing in states where there is already an alliance. Since April, 149 Char Dham Yatris died from ailments and accidents. 72 deaths were reported in Kedarnath, 28 in Yamunotri, 27 in Badrinath, and 16 in Gangotri. Show data. The health department says most of the deaths were due to heart attack. Pilgrimage season to go until the third week of November. Man held for urinating, defecating on Delhi flight. 12 persons killed in collision between two buses in Odisha. NHRC sends notice to Maharashtra over torture of 11 workers. Contractors kept the laborers chained and forced them to work 12 hours a day without wages. Bai dies after teachers allegedly thrashed him. Bombay HC rejects plea by minor to abort pregnancy. Hundreds stranded as flash flood. Landslips that disrupt Himachal highways. Involve public in drafting digital competition law. 9-day Jagannath Yatra. The Jagannath Yatra, which commences on Shukla Pakshami, concludes after 9 days. The darshan of the deities Jagannatha, Krishna, Balarama, and Subhadra from Gundicha to the Jagannath temple is considered a high point of a devotee's life, as they consider it an affirmation that Krishna takes care of those who repose faith in him. The 9-day Yatra lends itself to nonstop reading of our scriptures. In fact, the sight of the three chariots moving in a Somewhat zigzag fashion is due to the fact that Balarama takes up the position of the guardian of Krishna, the protector. When Krishna went to fetch Rukmini, Balarama, anticipating trouble, was on the spot with warriors to reply any attack on the couple, said Dr. Sudha Sheshyan in a discourse. The Bhagavatam says that Arjuna wanted to marry Subhadra, but Balarama was keen that she marry Duryodhana. As a wrestling tutor, Balarama found a star student in Duryodhana and was impressed by his prowess in the sport, which blinded him to his other faults. A resolute Arjuna arrived in Dwarka in the use of his sage and took up a position at the city gates. The all-knowing Krishna convinced Balarama to send the maiden Subhadra to wait upon him as his servitor, a common practice of the times. Krishna then arranged for Balarama and others, including himself, to be away on an island, setting the stage for Arjuna's flight with Subhadra. Krishna also warned Arjuna against driving the chariot on which the two were playing. Subhadra, being an expert charioteer, dodged all challenges and arrived with Arjuna safe in Hastinapur. This is about the Jagannath Yatra. Prigozhin issues a defiant statement on as uncertainty feels after mutiny. Pakistan Army sacks three officers in connection with May 9 violence. 14 civilians killed in fight for police headquarters in Sudan's capital. Russia's quater diplomat moves on after Australian court ruling. Wagner mutiny shows Russia's invasion of Ukraine was a strategic mistake, NATO chief. Sri Lanka to restructure its domestic debate amid challenges. S&P retains financial 24 India growth projection at 6%. DBS Bank names ex-HSBC executive Verma as unit MD. VM Mercedes must retrace bias for cheat devices on emissions. German code. HUL to become an intelligent enterprise. Center clears 56,415 crore to 16 states for capital investment. War at critical point in inflation fight. BIS. US EU slowed down to eat 20% of small firms. EAM amongst 650 million US green anode unit. India China to buoy oil demand. Aramco. City Union Bank plans to rise up to 500 crore. Go fast lenders said to favor 55 million fund infusion. Gardner bows Australia to big win in one of harshest test. Williamson taking things slow on his recovery ahead of the ODI WC. Mental stress tougher than physical toll. Rhino on 2007 injury. Modric to stay at Real Madrid despite Saudi Arabia interest. Kuwait test avoids India in top of the table clash. Need to approach every game with a positive mentality. Ching Chongti. Julon Knight and Morgan joins the MCC World Cricket Committee. Windies on the brink after Van Beek's heroic for the Dutch. ICC launches the CWC Trophy Tour in spectacular fashion. India ends Special Olympics campaign with the 202 medals. Battle looms between Vinci God Pugakar. Alcaraz dethrones Djokovic to reclaim world number one spot. Chess has taught me to stay patient, says Chahal. Defending champion and two-time winner have to negotiate a 3,404-kilometer route over a 21 adventure to take the victor's hello jersey in Paris. Barcelona signs Gundogan from Manchester City. Kenyan legend Kipchoge sets sights on Olympic marathon treble. BPFI elections to be held in Delhi on July 5. Indian face do well in Asian mixed doubles squash. Arshdeep and Saini impress in the country's stint. Tamil Nadu to meet Haryana for the Senior International National Women Football title. Vishnu moves away from Rajasthan to play for Gujarat. Rooting for greatness, Joe's career graph has gone skyward in recent years. He had 17 centuries to his credit at the start of 2021 and stood last in the list of the 25 Fab Four, which Kohli topped with 27 tons. But the Englishman is currently second with 30, just one behind Smith. Root's budgeball approach is keeping us in the game, says Labus Chagni. Ply root has been used for schemas at Lord's shade. The fossil that's changing what we know about patterns in nature. The fossil that's changing what we know about patterns in nature. Fibonacci spirals are so common in plants today that they are believed to represent an ancient and highly conserved feature dating back to the earliest stages of plant evolution and persisting in their present forms. But a new study based on 407 million had 407-year-old fossils challenges this. Scientists accused of running big publishing scam. The study also adds another piece to the puzzles of a major evolutionary question: why are Fibonacci spirals so common in plants today? There are houses for rent in Bangalore, but too many conditions apply. Those looking to rent a house in the city are often denied accommodation on the basis of their faith, food habits, gender, and profession. Too late, not for bachelors, not too late, not for single women, too late for veg only. Flight of fantasy for 23 underprivileged children. Indian otters face threats owing to habitat degradation and conflict with local communities. The aim was to inspire them to dream big and pursue their aspirations with a determination. With a determination. Reviving the rich legacy of Bengaluru, M. Pajlul Hasan's renowned book, Bangalore's Through the Centuries, returns with an expanded edition, providing a vivid portrait of the city's past. The symphony that is Ayurvedic cocktails. On to its third outlet. Spices, cocktails, and more. Get spooked canvas splash. Text and context. Understanding the Wagner mutiny. What are the investment proposals approved by India? The expected size of the upcoming Karnataka budget. Days by Pojal lasted the longest cyclone in close to 50 years. Medals galore for India at the hand of Special Olympics Games. S&P retains India's growth projection, fastest growth in APS. Understanding the Wagner mutiny, what led Russia into an unprecedented internal security crisis? Why was the chief of Wagner private military company involved in this? How did Russian President Vladimir Putin deal with the situation as the whole incident exposed Putin's loosening authority? God does know. Know your English, the role of organic intellectuals in challenging capitalistic hegemony. Organic intellectuals have a direct connection to the economic structure of the society and their own class. They remain connected to their class and work towards raising awareness of their class, social, and political roles, aiming to foster unity. June is Pride Month. Here's a quick fun facts relating to the LGBTQI community and the growth of the movement over the years. Word of the day. This is the last page, guys. I hope you guys are enjoying the newspaper reading. I at least read the newspaper for the next for minimum 2 hours to make you better in communication. So I am assure you I would learn the English in the next 30 days if you reading the newspaper at least 2 hours a day. So that would make you very effective to communicate with your anywhere. So let's see you in the upcoming videos, guys. Please subscribe the channel, like and comment for more videos related to education, healthcare, and personal interviews I am about to bring in the upcoming days. So have a great day. Bye bye. Take care.